So we wrote an article on this a while ago. It's one of your pet subjects that you talk about a lot.
Yeah.
Core training and how to do it right.
Yeah. Where to begin? I think the best place to start is to understand what the core is actually supposed to do. There's a number of key functions. So when you're just looking at it in a broad sense, it's supposed to protect the spine.
Talk about that, go back a step, talk about that from your presentation, the idea that the spine is supposed to move but also be stable at the same time. I think that's a really cool thing to get your head around.
So if you went to an engineer and you asked them, I need a structure that's strong and stable and can resist
motion,
shear forces and things like that, but also need a structure that can bend and move and adapt to change, they'd just laugh at you like, what do you can't design that?
It's impossible.
It's impossible. I need like one of those wind tube men and a column. So what we have is we have the spine, which can do both of those jobs. It can do both, and it can do that because of the core. It's able to adapt and move and stabilize the spine throughout any range of motion.
But when it comes to training the core, when you look at athletic movement, you analyze the biomechanics behind things like baseball pitching, jumping, hurdling, sprinting. The core is anti-movement. That's its primary goal, is to resist motion. When it comes to force production and force transduction, the core is designed to take force from the ground and from the legs, pass up through the hips, into the ribcage, into the torso, and then either rotate or elevate or extend through the body. But if it moves too much, we lose that force.
It's like an energy leak.
Exactly,
You're leaking energy. The best way I like to think about it is if you're running down the 100-metre track and you're moving as fast as you can, if that core is just moving all about, then you're leaking energy. All those force that the glutes are trying to pull into the leg and produce that force. It's also pulling down on the ribcage on that core canister. And if it's not going all into the leg, then you're not pushing forward as fast as you could.
Which reminds me, we ran this Tuesday. My hip flexors were sore because I haven't sprinted top speed in a while, and hamstrings. But my obliques were so tender.
And if I join like a deep breath, I'm like, ooh, there it is.
Yeah. And so we just did some running, and then that was all we did for the work. It was just 4 100s, 4 times 100 meter sprints, and then 4 50s.
Yeah.
My obliques and through here were just exhausted. But you know, that's function in a sporting sense. But when it comes to the gym, when it comes time to train the core, sit-ups.
So
they're wrong on so many levels.
That principle we just talked about, anti-motion, it's like a virus you're putting into the body. The muscles that are supposed to resist motion, you're now training them to move.
Yeah.
And it's like it works system backwards.
Yeah.
So rather than the core working inside out, it works the other way.
Yeah. So when you do a sit-up, you're teaching the core to work by flexing and bringing the front of the ribs and the front of the pelvis together, as opposed to when you throw, jump, sprint, explode. Those things are supposed to stay in their alignment. If you think of your pelvis as a bowl and the ribcage as a box, they're supposed to sit level. If you start tipping, you lose alignment, lose posture. When we do our sit-ups, you over-recruit the rectus abdominis, which starts creating that movement of bringing the fronts together. But then you lose the activation of what's probably the most important thing. You lose that ability to feed forward fire, that transverse abdominis and the multifidus, the deepest layers of the core, and the internal obliques. So our core and our body is designed to work from the inside out.
Yeah.
If you went to push me, or if I were to lose balance, hopefully my pelvic floor, my transverse abdominis, my multifidus would fire first to stabilize and lock down that spine, like you're talking about that stiff column, and then on top of that, the movement would come from my legs, from my arms, from my six-pack, my rectus abdominis, to stabilize on top of that. With crunches and sit-ups and Russian twists and all those sort of things, you're working the other way. You're working six-pack
inwards, yeah.
Not the other way around.
Consider it's like a virus for the body.
Yeah.
And that core canister idea you were talking about.
The bowl in the box.
Yeah. So pelvic floor on the bottom, diaphragm on the top. If you think of an actual can and you try and crush that and move that can when it's in that like can cylinder structure, it's quite hard to move. You put a dent in the side of that, you fold, and now you try and crush it, it's gone. The structural integrity is not there.
It'll crumple.
Same with the core.
Yeah, exactly. So movements we don't like, sit-ups.
Yes.
Unless you're a fighter and you need some armour, is probably the exception to the rule.
There's exceptions to the rule, as a broad sense, where say you don't like them, but then you'll find places where they are important. For
the majority of athletes who sit too much and are over-conditioned and under-strengthened, a sit-up is going to send them in the wrong direction. They need more internal stability, not more external armour. So if you're a fighter and you need to be able to handle punches and stuff like that to the stomach and to that area, you need
that armour.
bit of hypertrophy.
Get some bulk on that, yeah.
Exactly. So I'm okay with that. But sit-ups in a general sense, crunches in a general sense, Russian twists. Once you add a Russian twist in, you've got the crunching, but now you've got the flexion on the spinal and on the spine and on the discs, and then you add some rotation.
So I'll say to an athlete, like, I'll get them to put their hand out. So put your hand out for me. So if that's your disc, and then you have the vertebrae either side. If I wanted to destroy your spine, the best way to do it is I would flex and then rotate with load.
Yeah.
And twist it back and forth.
Squash that disc out.
Squash that disc out with a bit of rotational force in there. They're just like, oh, that makes sense. They don't want to do that.
Plus, at the same time, you're switching off the transverse abdominis, which is supposed to support that spine. So now you've got a compromised disc and a compromised muscle sitting around it, not doing its job stabilizing. It's a perfect storm.
Russian twists are out.
Yeah. But ones we do like, planks are brilliant when done properly. Planks and side planks, because you're under load, you're forced to hold that, bowl and box position, but in horizontal with load coming from the top. So
very easy to cheat on.
So easy.
Not easy one to coach.
You'll see kids or you'll see athletes hunching through their ribs, or they're poking their butt up in the air trying to make a tent either with their hips or with their thoracic spine in order to change the lever and to get that rectus abdominis, that six-pack muscle involved. Flatten everything out, relax the shoulders a little, make your TVA, make your pelvic floor do the work.
I think I'll walk over to an athlete and they're doing their plank. They're like, oh, can I go for longer? Can I go for longer? I'm like, show me your plank, and I'll show them. I'll just pull the hips back, relax the shoulders. I'm like, how's that? Like, oh yeah, it's really hard.
And then once you're in your planking, breathing.
Yeah.
You love your breathing stuff. Talk about the breathing.
So, it's that the diaphragm caps off that core canister, and so we already know there's a connection between the diaphragm and the core just with that alone. Yeah. When we add breathing, we do a lot of breathing with our planking work. We have that maximal exhalation. That diaphragm has to work, and it's just asking the core to work so much harder when the core is already working. We have our athletes breathe in for a couple of seconds and then breathe all their air out. Once they've got nothing left to breathe out, they continue trying to breathe out. And that diaphragm is just trying to work as hard as it can, and you get that burning feeling that all the athletes are after with their sit-ups and things like that.
I think that's probably the best way to get your planks. Once you get a good plank posture and feel like, oh, this is easy, start breathing slower. 3-4 second inhales and a 4 second forceful exhale. Try and get it all out, empty your lungs, get that diaphragm just squeeze down on that canister. Yeah. Then you'll feel your core light up. You just feel that transverse abdomen, just feel those obliques just really engage.
All of your core muscles are just trying to empty the lungs of all the oxygen that you have, and so they're working as hard as they can.
Obviously, don't go so hard that you pass out.
No.
So an athlete the other day sort of shaking and going red. It's like, no, you relax a little.
Yeah.
But that connection between diaphragm and breathing and core function is massive. Back to our list, other ones we like. So planks, side planks, dead bugs, and heel slides. Really good way of engaging, teaching the body to move the limbs while keeping that core in position under the load of the leg or the arms, working around them.
Absolutely. And you have athletes that try them for the first time, they think it's really easy, and you just have a look and they're just completely folding in the middle. They're putting that dent into the can.
Yep.
And they're losing that structural integrity. I'm like, no, just hold down, just gently above the ground, and now go. And they find it a lot more difficult.
And then I suppose lastly is that's kind of your anti sideband, anti-extension, anti-flexion type stuff. Rotational stuff.
I've yet to find a great one.
No, they kind of don't exist either, because creating rotation through your core is quite easy, but that compromises through the spine and doesn't really teach you how to transmit force from the hips into the ribcage, into the thoracic.
Baseball pitch movement.
Yeah, so med ball slams against the wall kind of stuff, but it's hard to do them right. It's hard to coach them well. Parloff holds, we played around with them for a while.
It's good. It's a good low intensity exercise. Once you get at any real weight, you just get everything else jumping in to help out.
It just becomes a shoulder exercise. Just destroys the forearms and the shoulders. Yeah. Landmine presses are okay with the barbell set in like the Torsionator type setup.
Yeah, they work well. Still not up there.
Yeah. There's a prize though. Anyone who finds that golden anti-rotational
we're looking
thing that just lights up the obliques.
Yeah. Sprinting.
Sprinting, maybe that's it.